Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska's coverage of the 2025 Iditarod. We are on the Tuesday PM edition of things, and there's not a lot for me to kind of intro before I bring the boys on, but just a quick update on Sean. I guess I will explain this. If anyone's watching that doesn't understand, my brother is Sean Underwood. He's working for the Iditarod crew, Insider crew, and so usually we're doing this together, but during the Iditarod we're not. So I find it, for me at least, I'm his brother. I want to give an update for anyone who has been a long time listener, kind of thing. So anyways, Sean's on his way, or I think he just got actually touched down in Shaktoolik. He was in Shaktoolik last year, and so I think that he's fine with going wherever they tell him to go. But I know that he was kind of happy to be going back there, and puts him up there at the front of the race. So he's going to get to see a lot of the exciting stuff that we're about to break down. My hope is that he goes to White Mountain. There was a kid there last year that kind of stole the live feed from him, and I'm hoping that he's there and can reconnect with him. So we'll see where he goes from Shaktoolik. But if anyone's watching on the checkpoint cameras, tune in to Shaktoolik because that's going to be the best one. I mean, let's be honest here, Anyways, without further ado, happy to bring back the boys on. Eddie, Josh, welcome on. And so the race is heating up at the top of the pack. And I think in the last, they're all on a run right now as we speak. Some moves are being made where I'm a little bit surprised. I felt like I woke up this morning and I was like, man, Jesse's really got it in the bag, and he's still got the lead. But as we go live right now, Jesse is, let me just do a refresh. He's 10 miles outside of Unalakleet, and then only 8 miles behind that is Paige Drobny, who is in the middle of let me run my math here. She left Caltag 2 at 9:06 a.m. It is now 6 p.m. there. So that is a 9-hour run. And are we going to assume, gentlemen, that she is going to Unk, or is she maybe stopping shy to avoid the madness of Unalakleet? Let's start there. Let me pitch that to you, Josh.
At this point, I'm gonna assume that she's gonna go all the way to Unalakleet. Which is kind of interesting because when they interviewed her, she said, "Oh, I'm gonna probably go to White Mountain in 6 or 7 runs," and just based on where she's at, I think it would be kind of crazy if she just decided to stop right now. I mean, she's really not that far from Unalakleet at this point. So, I mean, she's definitely making moves. Um, she's making moves. That's a pretty long, tough run to make, but there's been a lot of Iditarods won when people decided to run from Caltech to Unalakleet straight, and I mean, she's still moving pretty decent. Jesse's definitely going to get the first to the coast award. But like you said, when I woke up this morning, I was like, "Oh man, Paige is still in Caltech." I was like, I think she might be out of it, but I think she's putting herself, or trying to put herself back in it at this point. So pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and I'll just be interested to see what happens here. So the run for her into Caltag was an 8 hour and change run. And she did 5.5 hours there in Caltag. And now she's minimally, if she's gonna do all the way to Unk, alright, she's 18 miles away. So we'll call that 2 to 3 hours. Is that what you guys would agree with? Give or take?
2.5 hours.
Okay.
Yep.
So now we're looking at an 11.5 hour run after an 8 hour run. Eddie, what are your thoughts on a back-to-back run? What kind of break is she gonna have to take if she goes all the way to Unalakleet?
Yeah, I think she'll have to do a 5. I mean, she could do a 4 in keep going up the coast. But the thing is like, and Dallas always says this: you can catch up to the front runner, but once you catch up to him, then what? Are you gonna have gas in the tank to continue to race? So that's where like Jessie's in command, or I guess you would say. So that's my take on it. You start doing back-to-back long runs like that, you can kind of take the edge off of the team. I mean, she's got an incredible dog team. She knows what she's doing. So I think she'll continue up the coast in good fashion. But it can definitely be a little taxing on a dog team. So that's what I'll be curious to see. I think she's gonna usually when you see that happen, you see mushers take a 5 to a 6 hour break.
Okay.
And usually that kind of slingshots them into the lead. But she's kind of sitting in a different situation. She's not in the lead. So she might be forced to, get off the straw a little quicker. And then Matt, he only did about a 3 hour break, it looked like.
Let me see. I got some numbers here for you on Matt. It was about a 4 hour. So he did a 9 hour, from shy Caltag, blue Caltag. So it was a 9 hour and then into a 4 hour rest. And I guess maybe my math is off. Yesterday, I will throw myself under the bus. Yesterday, I thought Mitch had already taken his 8 hour, so I was like super excited that seeing him in 4th place. And then I ended the broadcast and went back and looked at the standings and was like, oh shit, he actually hasn't taken his 8 yet. So I will be the first to admit that maybe the math is off there, but 9 hours into 4 hour run, and now he's been running since 1:13. So and it's like they're kind of running together. It almost feels like, at least from like a tracker standpoint, Matt was outside of Caltag, Paige left, and then as soon as Paige showed up, Matt took off. And so they've been kind of just together very consistently catching up to Jessie on his way to Unalakleet. So an update with Matt, he's at mile 846. He's 3 miles behind Paige. And, just like from where we were this morning, it seemed a little bit like maybe this is starting to get out of reach. But seeing these moves that Matt and Paige have made, I'm certainly like, okay, they're putting the pressure on Jessie. They're making him think twice. I think you guys have talked about, like, when the pressure's on towards the end of a race, we'll see how, various mushers respond to that, especially someone like Jessie in the lead, trying to get his first win. Thoughts on any of that? Let me toss that to you, Josh.
The thing with Matt is Matt has been in this situation before. Like on the Yukon Quest, the year that he ran the Quest, he did a 17-hour run to win that race. And so it's not, Matt is not in a position that hasn't been in before, that he's uncomfortable in. He's not afraid to march. He has a team that will march up the coast. So if I was Jessie, I would definitely be looking over my shoulder, because it's not like Jessie at this point is like out of reach from. I know this morning it kind of looked like that, but I don't see anyone coming unless like the front 3 hit like a huge storm or something. I don't. It'll be tough for kind of the next group of mushers like Michelle and Milla and Mitch, I think, to kind of get to those top 3. But I think we're gonna see a pretty good battle up the coast between those 3.
And on the on the live with Greg and Bruce, they were talking about, so the first 3 is going to be exciting, right? And if Jessie continues to put the pressure on, it'll be more like a battle for second, who's going to get that, Paige or Matt, right? But then like 4th through 10th is separated. 4th, okay, so 4th place you got, let me just give you these names too: Milla, Michelle, Mitch, Petite, Bailey Vitello, Travis Beals, Ryan Reddington. So those last names are all in Caltag, mile 785. Meanwhile, only 15 miles ahead in fourth is Milla. So I will certainly be watching that fourth through 10th place. I see Riley there in 11th. He's like 20 miles away from Caltag. Maybe he or I think he's like the only one that maybe could creep into the top 10. You have Matt Failer in 12th at 726. So now you're looking at almost 60 miles back. I think that's really where we can set the break there. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. You got some exciting stuff at the front. You got exciting stuff for the rest of the top 10. And, one other thing that I want to follow up on the Mitch thing. So I see in the comments you guys are talking about he took his 8 in Eagle Island. But for me, it was fascinating, and maybe it is wrong. But when I went back and watched the tracker, he actually stayed in Eagle Island for nearly 12 hours. And so it made me wonder, maybe like I haven't gotten any more information. Maybe you all have heard, but I thought I heard something about maybe his back is giving him an issue. Do either of you have any comments on just like what we saw there at Eagle with 12 hours for Mitch? Not so much. Yeah.
Maybe through his alarm. I mean,
nah, come on, that's doubtful. No, like I said, someone said something about a back, and so I was just wondering, if something had come up there. I haven't seen a video since that happened, so I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about the front of the pack, and I'm sure we'll get back to kind of speculating. I have a follow-up question that I want to get back to with what we're looking at with Jessie. But just some other news that I wanted to follow up on. There was a Bryce Mumford scratch in the last 24 hours since our last live. And, that was something that we were monitoring. He has had 8 dogs. Let me see if I can look back real quick. I want to say like since his 24. And I thought that was going to be tough for him to have like 700 miles left in the race with only 8 as a rookie. So, it's his second chance at doing the Iditarod, and we're certainly, it's unfortunate to see that happen. Do you guys just have any comment about the Bryce scratch?
Just kudos to him for, driving. So I'm sitting here pulling up the standings. He left New Lotto
Yep.
with 8 dogs, and then drove all the way to Grayling 1 on a a super tough trail. So just kudos to him for when he got down to 8 dogs, just not throwing in the towel, just giving it his all.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot. It's tough. It's hard. But he gave it his best shot. So kudos to him for that. So
Yeah, certainly. And then a little bit of other news. We were kind of talking about. I had a question from someone the other day, and we didn't get to it with Amanda. And then since the Amanda episode yesterday, more more social media posts have happened. But Brenda Mackey in the beginning of the race, she scratched, and then like information came out about her scratch, and there's just been some more details that have come out, I guess. And then Jessica Kleka, who's an Iditarod veteran and also a veterinarian, she recently made a post kind of talking a little bit about the situation. And so before we went live, we were talking about it. Josh, I wanted to kind of like, if you could kind of summarize the situation a little bit and just, I have some follow-up questions, but just kind of give a little bit of that situation and your take on things.
yeah, so just kind of following it from because obviously friends with all these guys on Facebook, and so just kind of see what's coming. So after Brenda scratched, she went to Galena, and she had cell phone service there, and Basically described what happened, which is, she went, she left Tanana, and then she had, issues with the dog. And so she thought she needed kind of like immediate assistance. So she pressed her SOS button and then kind of just bedded down and waited for help. Then Emily Ford came by. She had a thermometer, and they checked the dog. Um, and the dog was running a pretty high fever. Still no one was coming, so Brenda, turned around, went back to Tanana. The vets looked at the dog. By then, the dog was better. Then, it's a little fuzzy kind of on the details if she was scratched or DQ'd. There was the Iditarod never received kind of any signal from her that she had pressed her SOS like button. So for those that don't know, all the trackers on our sleds, they have an SOS button. So like if you're in a dire situation, you hit that SOS button. They talk about it in the musher meeting. So like if you're in a life or death situation, you can hit that button. Um, so then they flew the dog back to Anchorage and kind of checked things out. Brenda had obviously scratched at that point. Um, and then they found some elevated levels in the dog's liver. And now it sounds like the dog is doing better, which is good. That's great. That's obviously what we want. And then the Iditarod ended up retracting its original statement and then issuing another one. Honestly, not 100% sure, what that was all about. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't change the outcome of what happened. Um, but yeah, that's basically kind of the storyline. And then, there's been all sorts of news stories that come out, and I've honestly never seen so many news stories about a musher that scratched.
Right. And just to give you a general gist of what I'm sorry I did that. Um, uh, like now that someone as respected as Jess has come out, who has the perspective as being an Iditarod finisher, who has this perspective of being a veterinarian, I just felt like it would be worthwhile to talk about. And I know you guys, like you all know the Mushers, and you're all part of the same like kind of community, if you will. So I didn't want to like put you all in a situation where you have to like take a side, but I just wanted to at least discuss it. Um, and there's all like me. I don't know, Eddie, if you're on the same page. Like I'm more like the drama for me. Like I'm not like I'm paying attention, but I'm not like so much paying attention to where like I know all the ins and outs of it. Are you kind of taking that road with this or what?
I've kept scrolling,
Right.
And I just rather talk about the race and the dogs. And the bottom line is there's a musher that was scratched or DQ'd or whatever verbiage you want to use, but she's out of the race, and that's that.
Sure. That makes sense. Okay. Okay, now within that situation though, there are a couple of follow-up questions that I want to ask. And I asked you guys this the other day offline, because for me, as a noob, I was like, well, so it was found out the dog was a 4-year-old female and was pregnant. And my first question to you all was, is that normal? Like, do you run a dog when it's pregnant? and both of you were kind of quick to answer that. So let me toss that
Well,
to you. Oh,
hold on, Brendan. We're talking about two different stories here.
okay.
That was the dog that was unfortunately lost on the trail in Mr. Klein's team.
Okay. Thank
So
you. Thank you.
two different storylines here.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted
And
to-
the pregnancy had nothing to do with the passing of the dog.
yeah, nothing to do.
Okay.
So
I did a bad job in transitioning that. So thank you, Josh, for calling me out on that. And that is certainly the case. It's because I have my questions written backwards in my notes over here. But yeah, so just real quick on the Dan Klein dog death situation, it is normal for a dog to be running pregnant early on. Is it like maybe when they haven't realized it's pregnant? Could just talk a little bit about that situation for me, please, Eddie.
well, there can definitely be dogs in the race that are pregnant. I mean, it could be some sort of accident, unknown that she's pregnant. It could be very early on in her pregnancy. So I mean, I have zero information about the 4-year-old Ventana. And so I can't sit here and speculate and be like, and then the other thing is with pregnancy tests for dogs, a lot of them are inaccurate, early on. So it can be hard to catch. I'm sure Dan didn't put a dog in the race, knowingly, that she was pregnant. So but once again, it's speculation. It's not even relevant because it had nothing to do with the passing of the dog either.
Okay. Awesome. I appreciate y'all's perspective and just adding a little bit of depth on that. And so those are some questions that I had from yesterday that I wanted to make sure in the early part of today that we got kind of cleared up. There's some other ones that I have, but I do want to get back a little bit into race mode. So it just as Eddie just was saying too, like he's been scrolling through that because he's more interested in the race than what's not going on outside of the race. So I'd had a chance to kind of catch up on some videos from the Outsider, and I took a couple notes. I was glad to see Travis. I hadn't seen a video from Travis here in a while, and Travis was in Caltag, and Josh, did you get a chance to watch that video?
I did. Yep.
Okay, so what I took away, the note I wrote down was that he said he was fine, but like I didn't believe it. I don't know why. It just the whole tone in that video, I don't know. Maybe we're on day 7 of the race or day 8, whatever it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
what was?
No, I mean, you could tell that Travis is. I mean, he's tired, but everybody is. I mean, even in a normal year, by the time people hit Caltech, they're tired. But now we've added another, 200 miles with 150 miles or whatever it is before they get there. I mean, you can tell, he's tired. And, I'll never forget, I asked Travis, like my rookie year after the race, I'm like, how the hell do you guys do this? Like up at the front, no sleep. And he's like, you just lick yourself in the eye and you just keep on going. And, that's Travis is used to being in that position, and I mean you could just tell he's taking a little bit to answer questions. I mean by day 7, I mean they're tired. I mean they are really really tired. So I would say he's just fine. He's going through his dog chores, massaging his dogs. His dogs were happy. They look great coming in. So
I was gonna ask you that. I talked about this yesterday with Amanda. Like my perspective of watching the dog videos as they go in and out, I'm like, okay, they kind of look good, so I guess they're good. But I had written down myself, I'm like, the dogs looked good, so I was gonna ask you that. I'm glad you said that. And then he also, I haven't asked or talked a lot about terrain because it's been so much on the river. But now leaving Caltag, the gist of all these interviews at Caltag too was like being happy that the river's over with, and so they were talking about the terrain leaving Caltag's like 20 miles of hills out of the checkpoint. Eddie, can you kind of talk a little bit more about that transition from being on the river for like 600 plus miles and then now we've got some hills?
Yeah, so as the teams leave Caltag, you make your climb into that portage there that you take all the way to Unalakleet, and they're not major, but they're hills, and you got to work through them a little bit, and majority of teams are camping on this run. Whether they go to Tripod, Old Woman, Shirosky, very few teams will go straight to Unalakleet, so you're carrying a lot of food and gear and extra supplies to do that camp. So it can be a little challenging there for those first few hours getting out of Caltag.
Okay. Yeah, Bruce was kind of referring to in one of his videos that maybe having that stimulation after so long on the river was almost beneficial for the dog teams, leaving Caltag. I see you shaking your head there, Josh. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, they've just been doing some mind-numbing runs, on the river for the last 7 days. So, they're gonna leave there on something that's not the river, and the dogs are gonna get excited, and the ones that have been to Nome before, they're like, okay, we know where we're freaking going now. Like we're not just going back and forth on the Yukon. Like we're headed to Nome finally. So the dogs should be super excited, kind of leaving Caltag, and they're not running a on a flat river anymore.
Sure, sure. And then another video, I was, we've talked a little bit about Bailey, and so his report out of Caltag was that it was a slog trail. He said he felt bad for the back of the pack because he felt that the trail itself was falling apart. It was interesting. I don't know if you watched that one too, Josh, but the way Greg or Bruce asked the question felt like maybe Bailey might have had like some sort of a blow up or a breakdown or something. Like the way he said that at some point in the race, it's so long and so tedious that the race begins to break the musher down as well. And then like later on in his answer, Bailey was like, yeah, there was this moment early on in that run where I was just like, why are we even doing this? Like, we're doing this lope and I got to go back up and it was miserable going down and I got to do this again. And, I just thought that it was interesting to get that perspective. He, because of that, has been mixing up the leaders. But what I took away ultimately is that he's kind of more run to run right now. And he is just trying to get to Nome. And considering if that's actually the case, he's running an 8th. And I still think that's pretty darn good. So any thoughts on Bailey? Let me toss that to you, Josh.
Yeah, Bailey up to this point has been having a really good race, but he's running at the top of the pack with it's a very experienced group of mushers, and I think this is what his third Iditarod.
Yep.
So,
because if you haven't caught, he's been very, very keen on making sure we know that his first 3 races have been the North Route, the South Route, and the Fairbanks Route. So, yeah, this is his third one. Sorry to cut you off, cut in there.
no, it's all good. So he's still learning a lot, right? Like I'm looking at it now, he's been parked in Caltag since 12:23, and in Alaska time, it's 6:30 now, so he's been there for 6 hours now. But as far as him asking like, oh, like why are we doing this? I think think every musher at some point during the race is gonna ask themselves like, why the hell are we doing this? Like, why the hell are we out there? Like, if you don't ask yourself that probably like once during the Iditarod, you're probably not like human. Um, but no, I mean he's having a good race, and he's learning a lot, and the fact that he's in the top 10. I mean, you look at the mushers that are around him. He should be proud of himself, and hopefully he just kind of can continue on and not fall too much off the pace. Um, the rest of the race, because the reality of it is there's still another 300 miles to go.
Yep, absolutely. And just yeah, I've been super impressed with Bailey. The one thing I was just thinking of, and I haven't looked at it, I was just trying to do a quick little look at it now, but I would think he might be one of the people. If the race were to end now, I think he would win most improved. I think he was like 16 or 17 last year.
Yeah, all right.
So just something to kind of keep monitoring. I don't even really know who else would be even in the running. I
It
know.
would be him or Riley,
Okay. I forget
depending
where
on.
I forget where Loro finished last year, but he's in 16th now. He may have been like what 26, 27 last year. So
Yeah, that's one thing with having a smaller field. It used to be you'd have people that would like finish in the 40th or 50th, and they'd move up into like the teens. But now, people are winning most improved musher by moving up like 10 spots, which is great.
yep,
It's just not like it used to be with the bigger fields. So it's kind of hard to kind of see who is gonna win that.
right. Yeah, I think Laura's in the mix too. He did get 26 last year. I just did a quick look up on it. 24 was 26, so just something kind of to monitor. I think Anna, story in the back line, Anna Barrington, I believe she is also looking to complete her personal best. I don't know if that's going to put her in the standing for a most improved. Let's do a quick look here. Just kind of some other stuff that we haven't really spoke about, and thought I would at least kind of bring it up. But her best is 17th, so she's probably not in the mix then. But anyways, now a very interesting, to me, kind of a little bit developing aspect in the back in the tier 2, we'll call it. Tier 1 is you got Paige and Jessie and Matt, and the second tier, that like 4th through 10th place, Nick Petit. Let's go there, okay? So Nick Petit was 20 miles from Eagle Island and did a straight shot 90 miles to Caltag 2. And if you all can, go watch the video of his dogs running into Caltag 2 off a 90-mile run. They look absolutely phenomenal. Eddie, you mentioned that earlier, so let me get your take on what you're seeing there from Nick, specifically those dogs. But talk about a 90-mile run. Like, I feel like that's a move that he made, but sustaining that going forward, I don't know. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, he's definitely got a dog team that's coming on fire. They're hitting another stride. They came in loping. They look good. He's putting down good speeds. He talked about him eating really well, and this is nothing, out of the ordinary for Nick. This is like classic Nick Petit when he was, at the top of his game. Nick would do all sorts of crazy runs, 120-mile runs right off the start. So it's not unheard of for him. I think he can definitely, he might be able to put together a couple strings of good runs. He's being smart about it by taking a nice long break there in Caltag.
Yep.
Because if you're going to do that, obviously, the dogs need a little more time to recover than if you were just typically doing your 7-hour run. So, and he's running them they're clipping along at a pretty good speed. Like I saw him going, in the 9s and 10s. So when you're running at that higher pace, the dogs need more time to recover. Like versus Matt Hall. Matt Hall could go do a 90-mile run, but have more of an average between 7 and 8 miles an hour, and he could get away with doing a 3 to 4 hour break and his dog team recover. So that's kind of two different styles right there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he continues. I'm sure he'll go straight to Uniclete, and from there, we'll see if he tries to do another big push and go straight to Koya.
Okay. All right. So your prediction is, and he said it. He's doing an 8-hour rest in Caltag, and then
Yep.
So you think that sets up nicely coming off? I don't have the hours of what that 90-mile run was. I assume 90 miles has got to be close to 12 hours, right?
I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure, and yeah, he'll need every bit of that 8-hour break.
Yeah. But he talked about, like, and you said it, long rest, long run has helped his team eat better. And he was like, man, the team is just eating phenomenally right now. And it's also allowing the team to get some real deep sleep. So I thought that was an interesting, just an interesting note. Can you talk a little bit about, like, I guess they're running longer and for, harder, not necessarily harder, but longer. So they're able to get to sleep quicker versus only doing a 6-hour run. Can you hop on that, Josh? Talk about that a little bit.
Ultimately it just depends on what your team is trained for and what they're used to. Like the year that Sebastian Schnuller took, second place, he knew he had a slower team, so he would just do like these crazy long 9-10 hour runs. So it's like Nick's dogs they're used to doing, those longer runs, and Nick said it himself. He's like, I've tried these shorter runs, shorter rests. He's like, my dogs just don't like it. I don't like it. I don't get any sleep. It's like if he takes an 8-hour rest, he's gonna go get a nice 3-4 hour nap. Get a meal or two in his dogs, if they're eating good. Everybody's team is just different. And it's kind of cool to see like the old Nick. Uh, we talked about how Nick is kind of like a wild card before the race, and he'd kind of been running, just like a normal race like everyone else, and then all of a sudden he's just like, we're gonna run 90 miles straight, and it's like, all right, this is the Nick that we know and love.
It's funny that I've seen a couple comments in the chat. It's like, Nick's a wild card, and you literally just said that. So, so that to me is something like in that second tier. That's kind of behind the front of the pack that I am continuing to monitor. I don't know if there was anything else that you all picked up on there with that group that's just kind of behind the leaders. And as we've talked, let's see, Mitch is now left Caltag. So, that puts him at 6 right now. But
And Mitch camped before Caltag, correct?
Yep, he did.
correct.
Yeah.
So you think that puts him at going to Old Woman? And then
Depends
blowing.
on how far out of Caltag he camped.
Okay.
So, let's say he was 30 miles or so out of Caltag. Tripod. If he was closer to Caltag than that, then maybe Old Woman, or if he was a real short distance from Caltag, maybe he would go up towards where Jessie camped. Go to Shirosky, but that would be a little bit of a push there. That would be he'd be getting to a longer run, which isn't really a Mitch style. That would be out of the ordinary. So I could see him going to more of Tripod, and then Tripod to Uniclete. And I think that's what we'll see from Matt. I think we'll continue to see this kind of like Jesse's going to blow Uniclete. Paige is going to come into Uniclete and she's got a camp.
Yep.
Matt Hall will be coming in to Uniclete, and he's going to probably maybe just go right out of it, or he's got to stop there. So then you'll see Jesse stretch back out, and we'll see that lead. You know, he'll regain that lead, and then we'll see him pull over probably at the shelter cabin out of Shaktoolik, you know. And as those teams are getting close to him, I'm sure he'll be pulling the hook and making his way towards Koyuk. So I think we'll kind of keep seeing this come and go type strategy, you know, between all three of them.
Yeah, I'm interested. Like, I know that when I wake up tomorrow, things are gonna be much different. You know, I think that those three are gonna be a little more spread out, and I'll be interested to see how that 4 to 10 has kind of maybe a little separation within that or not. So yeah, I want to follow up with you guys on get out of the race mode for a second. And I have a question. Okay. And I'm very interested to hear both of your perspectives on this. This was coming from Christine. I appreciate the questions on this. She's talking about how you set up your seasons, right? So I'm gonna just get through this so you can kind of hear it all, and then I'll toss it out to you, Josh. But I also want to hear your perspective, Eddie, as well. So would you all be willing to talk about how and when you decide on what races for the season, and how many other races that you can compete in if you're planning on running the Iditarod or not? And just kind of talk about like your situations with handlers. If you have handlers helping with the training, how does that work? Do they travel with you to those races? Do they travel anywhere in the Iditarod? There's more questions, but we'll just leave it at that for now. So let me just throw that to you, Josh.
Man, that's we could do a whole nother episode just on that. I mean, I think a lot of it is everyone has like the races that they like to go do, whether you're doing Iditarod or not. It's like if I had my choice and I had all the money and time in the world, I would run Kinnick, Cusco, Iditarod, Koluk. Those are I like those races. I like the way they're ran. I like the race organizations. I like the trail. I like the people. I think running those races sets you up well for Iditarod. Um, you know, those are kind of the things like that I'm setting that I try and set my season up for is like if you train for the Knick, it's easy to transition to the Cusco. If you do the Cusco, you've got a team that's ready for Iditarod. Um, is just kind of the way that I like look at that, and they've kind of like the last 2 years of racing. Obviously, took this year off, but that's what I did, and I think it kind of came to fruition last year for me. Obviously, I wasn't able to race because of my shoulder, but Wally took my team and got 11th, so I think they were set up really well for Iditarod. Um, like as far as like my season starting off, all my dogs go to the glacier now, with my handler Ashley, um, which before, we would start training kind of like mid August as soon as it got cold enough. But now, they're on the glacier till first week of September. So actually now, they come home first week of September. I usually give them a couple weeks off just to kind of let them reacclimate to being back on the ground and just give them a break. And then, they come off the glacier like really in shape, super muscled up. So then it's kind of like I got to speed them back up because they've been running slow all summer, pulling, a bunch of tourists around the glacier. So then, we're just basically working on speed, and they've already kind of got that base conditioning that you're working on in August. And then, you get ready You get ready for your races. And then as far as like my kennel situation, so yes, I've always had handlers. Um, I've always worked like a rotational schedule where I've either like worked week on, week off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So I've been gone. So I've always been very dependent on my handlers to help me kind of train up my team. It's worked out okay. I'm definitely looking forward to being home full time and training this next winter. I think it's going to be a game changer for the team. But no, my handlers are definitely kind of key to making everything happen and training. And they travel the races. They run the younger dogs in races. So for me, they're definitely a key part of you know my operation. So did I
Oh,
answer all the questions? I
yeah, no,
tried
I
to give
think,
like I
I
tried
mean,
to give a condensed version.
no, I think you did great, and I think that in terms of what the Christine was looking for, I think that would certainly give a perspective. Now, I'm interested to hear Eddie's perspective though, because it is a little bit different. And so, kind of tell us a little bit about, you started your own kennels last season, correct?
Yep.
And so, you're a one man team, so kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm too broke to afford a hand, but and I prefer it anyways. And I have a small kennel, so I'm not like a lot of other mushers where they got 50, 60, 80. Dallas has got over 100. Mitch has got well over 100. I don't have an operation like that, so I'm able to just do a one man show, and I prefer it. I just like being real hands on with my dogs, and I don't want anybody else scooping poop because I want to know what it looks like. If that dog's got an issue, I want to know. And if other hands are in the pot, then it sometimes those little things get missed. And as far as setting up a team, for the season, I think it's all depends on what kind of team you have, what your goals are for that season. Typically, I mean, if I have a race age team, let's say where I plan on going to Iditarod and being competitive, I have the same approach as Josh, and it's what I did previously. It's what I did for my rookie Iditarod. I run Kinnick. It transfers really well right into Cusco. And then I go from Cusco to Iditarod. And if I'm still feeling real spunky, then Kobuk 440. And those are my favorite races. I really like them. There's a lot of other great races out there as well. The Yukon Quest, Alaska, Canada. I really like the Alaska side. Um, just the terrain and ruggedness of that race nothing else compares to it. There's Copper Basin, and there's lots of races around the state, but those are my favorite.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Just a couple other questions she had that I think I can at least answer a few of these. So the one question was, do handlers travel to certain stops along the Iditarod Trail or just meet them in Nome? So most of the time you have your handlers there at the ceremonial, the restart, and then in Nome. But maybe they get to another checkpoint just to see it, but they're not going to be able to handle or do anything there. The Iditarod is a race that doesn't have handlers. The races that you both just mentioned, I'm not as on top of it as you obviously would be. Some of those races do have handlers, correct? Josh?
So like the quest, um, they have well, none of them are assisted checkpoints. Like the handlers can't help you with the dog team at all. But
Mm-hmm.
like some of them, they'll bring you, they'll be hauling your drop bags around and cleaning up your straw and stuff like that. But Eddie, correct me if I'm wrong. There's no assisted checkpoints in Alaska, correct? Where handlers can assist.
Correct. There's been races at times where they've had some like leniency on, okay, you're a veteran musher, you're not using this as a qualifier.
Right.
Won't your handlers like bring you
Like
water?
the Willow 300 used to be like that, but you
Yep,
couldn't have any assistance if you were using it as a qualifier. Yeah.
correct. And the Kinect 200 did it 1 year as well. Like they let handlers bring us water and bring us our drop bags, and they weren't feeding our dogs for us or anything like that, but it's more hands-on, and I kind of like it because it gets people involved. I could really it's not like it makes our lives a whole lot easier or anything like that. I don't think there's a whole lot of competitive advantage to it, um, but it it does get volunteers and your handlers and people around watching the race. It gets them involved, so it's kind of cool when races allow that.
Yeah.
Nice.
And like logistically trying to send your handlers out on the trail, like at the end of the day, like all your dogs aren't on the race and you still have a kennel at home to take care of that someone has to take care of while you're racing, whether, it's your spouse or handler, and then, you have uh dogs returning to Anchorage. So, it's like it's a lot of logistics to handle. And those people are kind of a key part of helping make all that possible.
Awesome. Okay, I think on the handler and piecing the team together, you guys did great answering those questions. A follow up question, kind of similar but slightly different, and I think I can answer part of it, and you guys can provide some depth. But talking about the renting a dog, in what circumstances would you rent a dog, and then also renting a team, right? My take on the renting of a dog, you guys chime in after this, is that maybe you are running a smaller kennel and you don't have enough race ready dogs, and so you reach out to another team, see if Eddie mentioned all those other bigger names that have 100 or 50 dogs. Well, maybe they got one sitting there that can suit it up for the race. So that would be a great time for a rent a dog, if you will. Do you guys agree with what I said? Is there more? Can you add more to that? Is there other situations? And I'll toss that to you, Eddie.
Yeah, so you have mushers, maybe they're starting a kennel and they want to get into it, and they got puppies right now but they're not ready to race, so they're like, okay, I got to get my qualifiers. I want to be able to run Iditarod here in the next couple of years. So they go out, they lease a dog team. There's a guy named Josh Daly. He's down on the peninsula. He leased a team from Dean Osmar. I know he had some race plans this season. And that's kind of like his situation. You have mushers like Milla. She only owns a handful of dogs. And then basically majority of her team is all leased from Dee Dee Johnroe, Dean Osmar, Jim Borkwin. Who else? I think she's got one from Jessie Holmes. So there's mushers like that. Jeff King used to do it. Go around, buy and lease, and kind of puzzle together a dog team. From multiple kennels, and then you also have the situation of maybe you have a small kennel and you get all the way up to Iditarod, and it's like, you know what, I got a few that just don't look 100%. I want to go lease a dog, just for the race. So you have people that need a couple just to plug into their team to get a full 16 roster. So you have that situation as well.
Awesome. Thank you for just kind of adding to that. And Josh, is there anything, just hearing Eddie's answer, is there anything that made you think of or that you want to add as well?
No, I mean, my last Iditarod, I actually leased two dogs that Eddie had trained up, um, from from uh, from Aaron. So, and it was a situation of at that time I had really small pool of racing dogs because I had, you know, I had just a lot of young dogs at the time, and a couple of them had some bumps and bruises and weren't 100% ready to go. So, just at least some plug and play dogs. So, um, I would say leasing a dog at the last minute, like the person leasing the dog, like it has to be the type of dog that isn't like super attached to you and just kind of gets along with everyone. So, um, it takes a kind of a special kind of dog, but it worked out good. So
Nice. Well, I appreciate you guys kind of answering some of those unrace related questions. Some of those have been carrying on for a few days, so I wanted to try to sprinkle in a couple of those while we break down the race as well. So we're almost an hour in. I thought I'd give a quick update. I appreciate Robert on the update too. He was telling me he was looking at the Squid's Facebook page and their most recent post. Essentially, it said that Paige had 3 options, which now there were 2 that still exist. And I think you talked about it, Eddie, but she can either camp before Unalakleet for a few hours and then run through to Shaktoolik, or run the full 72 miles and then take the rest at Unalakleet. So I was just, he like had posted something like, oh, there's a post from them, and I was just like, well, I wonder what it says. So thank you for sharing that, and right in line with what we were talking about. But yeah, he's 2 miles outside of Unalakleet. Jessie is right now, and we're fully expecting him to go through, correct, and then like camp halfway between Unalakleet, or just somewhere between Unalakleet and Shaktoolik. Is that what you were thinking, Eddie?
No, I think Jessie will go all the way to Shaktoolik, or he'll blow it and go to the shelter cabin. That's about 12 miles out.
Okay.
So basically, what you're looking at Jessie doing is breaking up the coast into 70-mile runs.
Oh, okay. 70-mile
That's
runs.
what it kind of. And once again, we talked about this on like other sections of the trail. It allows him to run it efficiently, to where he's going to do this at a minimum with 1 less camp than most of the people there in the top 10. Now Matt will do it in the same amount of runs. He's kind of leapfrogging to different areas. And we'll see what Paige does. She could very well do it, but I don't know if she's sandbagging us but back in Caltag, she was like, I'm going to do it in 6 or 7 runs. And 6 or 7 runs, I mean, that would be having you stop at every checkpoint and stopping that old woman. And so, that's obviously not happening. So I on her being aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked, I think Amanda talked about it yesterday. We've talked about it prior to that she has tended to be more conservative in her race approach, whether it's the Iditarod or in other race situations. It tells me something about her team, man. That she's doing something that she wouldn't normally. She's going outside her normal routine. So clearly, this team is a hell of a team, and I'm curious to see how they hold up. I guess she's going to go to Unalakleet, as we kind of suspect. And, what does that rest look like? Is it only 5 or 6, like you said, Eddie? Or is it maybe a little bit more? We got a Paige resting? Is that what I see?
yeah, I mean, obviously she saw something in her team leaving Caltag for her to make that decision, because I think when she was in Caltag, in her mind, she was probably thinking, okay, there's no way we're running all the way to Unalakleet, but obviously she saw something, and she's like, we're gonna go for it,
Right.
Yeah, she's not going to ask, her dogs anything that they're not capable of doing. So it's a good sign. Obviously, yeah, it shows that our team has they still got that spark in them. So
Josh,
be interesting.
you're got your computer in front of you. If you can, pull up the Uno cleat. And Jessie is on camera. I don't know what the mileage is. Maybe a mile out. Actually, I do know what the mileage is right here. Yeah, he's just under a mile. I would love for you to just look at that and tell us what you're seeing from the dog's perspective. Right now they're like far away where it's just kind of tough to tell, but I think as they turn the corner, you might be able to see that. So just keep an eye on that, and in the meantime, let me just look through and see if we've asked questions here in the chat.
Sorry about that, Brendan. I got kicked out for a sec.
Oh yeah, no worries. Oh, I see what happened. Let me just update. Let me update Josh on here.
Wait, the last thing I heard is you have your computer up and.
Oh yeah. So I was asking you to pull up the Unilocleat camera because Jessie's on camera, and I wanted you to kind of assess what you're seeing there.
Okay, I can do that.
In the meantime, I realized that the camera is a little bit messed up with Josh, so I'm in the process of fixing that. Let's see.
Yep. So Jesse's rolling in. Looks like he's got a single leader out front. Team looks great. They really do.
That's awesome to hear. I think that I'm going to just go to me for a second since it was slightly messed up. And I think that we've done a great job. We're a little over an hour in. I think we've covered a lot of the main storylines. I'm super interested to see what Nick does after his 8 hours in Caltag and how that run to Unocleat is for him. And yeah, Josh, as you said, the that team's looking awesome coming in right now. They're really kind of like clearing up. It's easier to see them, and so. But yeah, thank you all for joining us yet again. We will be back live tomorrow. I think we have confirmed that it'll be the boys with Amanda, and that should most likely take us. That would be like our last live before the winter crosses in Nome. I might try to get like a after the fact one going, but that is just a little bit about what to expect from us. You'll see us tomorrow with Amanda, and we will be talking a little bit more in depth about things then. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for